Welcome to another episode of Straight Fire VR. I'm Steve Milo, and I want to let everybody know we now have a website called straightfirevr.com. And for listeners who have ideas or feedback, you can email us at straightfirevr@gmail.com. And I'm joined by our co-host, Miriam Ramsey, the Regional Director of Business Development for V-Trips. Good morning, good afternoon, Miriam. How are you doing?
I'm good. How's everyone?
We're ready and loaded. So I've got two special guests who have a lot to say. The first is Jeannie Dailey. She's the founder and CEO of Newman Dailey Resort Properties in Destin, Florida. Jeannie, how are you doing?
Good. How are you, Steve?
I was able to get a two-for-one special where I got both of you together because I have Tiffany Edwards, who I was gonna not reveal that you were related, but Heather said no.
Go ahead.
So Tiffany is your daughter.
Yep, I own her. I'm proud of her.
Tiffany is CEO of Coletta Consulting, who's done a tremendous amount of lobbyist work, and she and her husband Ben Edwards own several vacation rental companies or co-own in California, Texas, and some other areas. So welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you. I'm excited. This is the first time of all the different podcasts and recordings that we've done that Mom and I have been on one together.
Yeah.
And we work so much behind the scenes, but no one's ever asked us to be together. So I'm really excited about this conversation.
And of course, Tiffany, I like the fact that you have finally gone to social media. You have a LinkedIn page. No post yet, but you can find her on LinkedIn. I tried to see if she'll accept my invitation to link to her. And I'm joined by our executive producer, sound engineer, Heather Macias Milo. And today is Heather's birthday. So happy birthday, Heather.
Happy birthday, Heather.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Her one request was to do this. So we're
I was going to say, this was the excitement of her day that she's been dreaming of for years.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll be taking her to a nice dinner later. Well, Jeannie and Tiffany, I wanted to start off with some industry news. And I think we all have to talk about kind of the trends in the vacation rental industry of what appears to be lower ADR and in some cases lower occupied nights. And we've talked about this in previous episodes, but Jeannie, what are you seeing in Destin Panhandle? Because we obviously have a company called Southern Vacation Rentals. We're both in the same sector.
Good company.
What have you been seeing? Yeah, I mean, we both compete in the same area. And what are you seeing for ADR and occupied nights for the summer?
First thing I want to say, Southern is a great company, and we are friendly competitors in this area because we all believe that the bigger we can make the pie, the greater our share is for each of us in this pie. But I was just on the Key Data webinar yesterday or day before, and they were showing that the entire Southeast for the second quarter, the average occupancy was about 55%. Well, we experienced 70% occupancy for that second quarter. Our ADR has come down from last year about 10%, 15%. However, it's still about 50% higher than 2019. So we have been really blessed and fortunate in this area. I consider COVID a blessing now that I'm past it. We made a lot of lemonade out of that, the lemons we were dealt during that.
For our area specifically, it's interesting that we have this call today. There was a Wall Street Journal article that came out how strong our marketplace is here. And I like the coast and not the panhandle. Jeannie informed me of that marketing many years ago. But we're still having a lot of construction. There's still a lot of individuals who want to come here and are willing to pay a higher rate for nice, larger homes here.
So our blended occupancy for the Southern brand as of today, and we're not through July or August, is right at 69%. And Panama City is slightly below at 65%. Again, those numbers could go up as we continue to pick up a lot of last minute bookings. We have seen ADR drop, but but nowhere near what some of the reports have
Yeah.
stated. I mean, we've seen a reduction of ADR by about 6%, and occupied nights slightly down. But again, we can still pick those up. I'd say overall, one of the things we did, and I'd be curious what you did, is we started in the fall of 2022 communicating to our owners that we were going to reduce ADR to drive occupied nights. And Jeannie, what did you do?
The same thing, Steve. It's been just we had to over communicate this year and try and educate our owners. And it's like our legacy owners who've been with us 15, 20 years, they've just been happy. They know we've been through many market trends and ups and downs, and it's a roller coaster ride, and they're in for the long term. It's our new homeowners who bought in 21, 22 at those high rates, and we're expecting a really high return that we're having to really over communicate with. And then it's the owners who I think Miriam said on the last podcast too, who haven't bothered to reinvest in their vacation rental business by doing upgrades and becoming one of the best units on the market instead of the duds on the market. And those are the ones we're having a more difficult time. A whole lot more competition now, not only in the local area, but with Europe and cruise lines, and the dollar is strong against the euros.
Our area is so unique that we don't have a lot of other type of accommodations. So we don't have a huge hotel presence.
Yeah.
We have a lot of inventory that is specifically, purpose built for vacation rentals, very much like what you guys are kind of doing in Tennessee, but through different developers who have understand that the ROI is a little bit better in these open floor plans, smaller closets, smaller bedroom, grander kitchens and outdoor space. And so it's a more robust market, but I think also, to the point of Southern and to Newman Dailey, I think our numbers are probably a lot stronger. So I think there's a lot of people who have entered the marketplace and realtors who have tried to inflate what a projection would be based on a 2021 number. And so you're seeing these new owners who want to be investors, and they're relying on that projection for maybe 1 year of very high ADR and very high occupancy. And so for them to buy at the height of the market, they don't understand this industry and the ups and downs that come with this industry. And so they're looking at just a window of 1 year.
Miriam, well, hold on. Can you believe that real estate agents might overinflate rental income projections to a potential buyer? Can you believe that? That is shocking to me. What are you hearing?
I honestly don't think that's happening, because these guys would never do that. They would never put us in that situation, right?
Never.
I mean, no, they're giving the low ball number. They're not maximizing that, 15% of nowhere that's ever going to happen. They inflate the numbers and then having those tough conversations. But what is that going to look like? I mean, look, we all know that it's coming, right? In the next 12 to 16 months. But everyone who has bought that at the inflated price, that is not making that revenue, where will those units be in 12 to 16 months? I think that's everyone's question.
Yeah,
I agree. And there are other factors that are related to that. So especially for your area where you're seeing tax increases, we're going to see a lot more cost to these owners as well. We're going to see taxes throughout the country start to increase, but also, we've seen policies that have been made and as it relates to even accessing housekeeping or vendors or suppliers, and then the inflated cost of some of those products and services. So there's a lot more expense that's going to be coming down that will even be more than covering that mortgage cost.
I think what Tiffany just said is really important, because I was actually talking to an analyst previous to this, and his question is, supply growth in the industry. He had said there was analysts outside the industry that were projecting supply growth as high as 20% in 2023, and they've now brought their expectations down to 8%, and it's dropping. And I've been on a number of calls saying, hey, look, there was an outlier event where interest rates were very low, banks were lending money very easily, and because all this hype around short-term rentals and ADR and occupied nights out of 2021 and 2022, there was kind of a feeding frenzy, investment frenzy of purchasing. But that is over, right? So interest rates are up 5%. And in many cases, it's hard to find commercial banks that even want to lend, particularly on investment properties. And then in some of these markets, ADR and occupied nights have really come down significantly. And some of these investors are converting their properties, if they can, the long-term rentals, or they're trying to sell. So, Jeannie, I know one of the things we do, which is we try to, let our owners know the glass is half full, is we say, look, we're going to go for occupied nights. The rates that we were charging at some points during the peak may not be attainable, but we'll try to pick it up on shoulder season. So I did pull numbers for the fall that at this point in time look fairly encouraging. So September through December, at least on the V-Trip side, look pretty encouraging. What are you seeing for your advanced bookings September, December? Obviously, hoping no storms come through, but how does your fall look?
It's actually looking really strong, the same as you, Steve. We're pacing ahead. August is ahead of last year. So we feel good about that. But throughout the fall, we're pacing ahead of last year. And I agree with you, it's the ADR that's come down some in order to get that occupancy. So it's continuing to communicate with the owners. And actually, we started communicating with them in 2022 that 23 was going to be a whole different world. And even though we were ahead of pace coming into 2023, it was like the light switch went off in mid-January and didn't click back on until mid-March. We are seeing the pace for the fall pick up, and our advanced bookings were actually pacing ahead of where we were last year for 2024. And of course, that helps with your owner retention and those owners who bought at a higher end of the market, that they're not going to just, there's a windfall for business development of a mass exodus from one company to another, although I want them all coming to us.
Well, 2024, I'm glad you brought it up. I did pull some data. Our numbers are tracking extremely well for 2024 first quarter. And I think there's a lot of reasons for optimism, because those baby boomers and snowbirds, in many cases, were clearly affected by COVID and travel bans. And now they are traveling a lot. So we're showing ADR actually up 10%, and occupied nights that have been paid actually up 10%. So we feel very, very good. And really the available ADR is way, way up, because most of March is still open and Easter falls kind of late or early, which is going to impact March. So we're feeling good about the fall and the first quarter 2024. And we've communicated to owners, those type of expectations. But I want to now talk about one other thing.
Can I say one thing about that, Steve?
Yeah.
What we're seeing too is we're having guests book through VRBO for 4 weeks at weekly rates for January or February. So it is a much higher ADR because they're not at that snowbird monthly rate. They're at a weekly rate, which has been a great new shift in the market. And of course, so it's a younger demographic up here than what we've traditionally had. So that's been a positive. Sorry, just wanted to add on to that.
No. I want to bring up something you just kind of mentioned briefly, which is owner churn. There's obviously been a lot of conversation about owner churn in 2023. Vacasa claimed publicly that their owner churn had increased. Now their owner churn is reported as 20% a year. So they have 20% of their properties churn. I know, it's just incredible.
Way more than that.
Well,
they staff. Nobody answers their phone. They'd have more churn if they could even take the call to close out their contract.
But I wanted to ask you, because V-Trips is seeing less owner churn this year than last year, because our highest churn is normally the resale of a property. And with interest rates being so high, we're not seeing as many owners trying to resell their properties. So are you seeing more owner churn, Jeannie, or less owner churn than 2021 and 2022?
We're actually staying about even. Our owner count is above where we were, but we're able to maintain a lot of the units that we've sold. So we've been able to resell the new buyer on staying with us. So we've kept a lot of that inventory, plus added new inventory. We've added some Vacasa units and some other good high-end producing units too.
We all know the companies that are churning the most. Vacasa, because they're public, we'll talk more about them, but there's some other companies that are having a lot of churn too.
Yeah.
We track our churn very carefully. We actually bonus pretty heavily on it. And in terms of owner acquisition, new properties, we're 50% ahead of our projections for our budget. So we're running way ahead because there's so many properties that are churning, in part from companies that overpromised revenue and underdelivered. And I think Vacasa in particular, because one, they've had so many operational problems, you know, when they let off all these people, then more people left who were good, and they've just been hemorrhaging staff. And then the other thing, I'll never forget, I was on a flight with one of my, you know, friendly competitors in the Panhandle, and she was showing me the Vacasa owner portal. I guess one of her owners gave her the password, and they were selling units in May for Panama City for under $100 a night. And they were just blowing stuff out, and owners were really, really upset. Have you heard about Vacasa just dropping rates to just get occupied nights at any cost?
We've heard $50 a night and seen it when we went up against a contract, but it was a property we didn't want over in Destin West, you know, on Okaloosa Island. And it was property we didn't want, but they sold a spring reservation $50 a night. I mean, snowbirds pay more than that.
Next 16 months, I think what we are going to see in terms of owners is there's going to be a shakeout of people who thought they could do it themselves by just providing their home onto a listing site and managing that because it was easy. There were so many fish in the barrel to be able to fill their weeks. And I think we're going to start seeing, because there are so many regulations that have happened throughout the country and different registrations that have come online and different requirements for taxes. I think we're going to see that for people who can't necessarily sell that unit, that they're going to move back into that or move into the property management and say, I get more and you guys can take over, because this is a very complex, you know, to review rates to get yourself up higher on a listing site. So I think that there is opportunity for well-known property managers in a location.
I got an email from a listener. We already have a few, and he said he wanted to have a Milo industry tip. So my industry tip for this episode is, in any contract you sign with a vendor, get a 30-day out clause. So you can get out when they may overpromise and underdeliver. Jeannie, what do you think about that suggestion?
Absolutely. All day long. And be careful if they're promising you too much up front, or get a month or so free if you can, and then or reduced rates until they prove themselves. But absolutely, Steve, all day long.
Miriam, have you run across any vendors in this space that may overpromise and underdeliver?
God, a ton. It blows my mind, and people keep going back. Like, that's what I don't understand. Is get me once, okay, even twice, but 5 and 6 times. What are we doing? Like, you deserve that at some point, right?
Okay, well, we're going to move on now to the next reason why we're here, which